Hi, I am Brooklyn McGonigal, and my first presentation for the Raiders Foundation portfolio is on vicarious trauma on counselors, and this is from Psychology 101. Many mental health professionals and advocates and different professionals within those related careers have experienced vicarious or secondary trauma, and this is led to by their many different parts of their job. There could be lots of stress related to taking on many cases at once and not having the results or the support that they truly need, and having to deal with hearing about lots of trauma people have been through can lead to a breakdown of your own mental health. Vicarious trauma in itself is the secondary trauma from hearing responses about what has happened to other people and therefore starts affecting you in your own mental health. The effects of this trauma have begun because of lots of different issues. It could be a result of their own trauma resurfacing, or it could be just a shared in kind of an empathetic sort of way. That way, people are affected by what others say. The public response to this issue has been that most people really don't know about it and don't understand it. A lot of the time, it kind of gets swept under the rug because people just don't understand how much these professionals go through to be able to provide the support that they do in their career field. The popular press and scholarly articles are very different, as I noticed doing my research. In their audience, the popular press articles focus more on the general public. They tend to really gear towards just representing the issue and kind of relating to the public. This comes forward in their dictation. They tend to use very less professional wording when it comes to presenting what the issues are and what have been going on for these professionals. Whereas the scholarly articles are definitely geared towards other scholars and other people within those fields to try to help them see the resources that they truly need and should have. The point of view within these two different articles are that the popular press, once more, is just trying to relay the message and trying to get this out to the generalized public, and a lot of the times it is more from a generalized state of view. Whereas the scholarly articles are more first-hand responses and different experiences from these professionals. In my first article from CBC News 2017, which is the most justice system administrators traumatized on the job. In this, we see that secondary trauma in federal companies have really impacted the professionals within that related field. It led to a lots of insomnia, depression, and even drug use in some of the cases. The point of view about this, it took from first-hand experiences. However, it was more or less just relayed. How to go about the issue, they believed that getting help for these people was really the biggest issue of all, that they needed more counseling themselves, as well as just better effects from the company itself to give to its employees. My second popular press article is Vicarious Trauma in Criminal and Family Lawyers, the Unseen Burden for Advocating Victims, from Law Now magazine, and this was from Guys 2024. Within this, they explored the indirect exposure on trauma onto lawyers. This was a pretty big deal for them. They really divulged into the issue that lawyers see and how the justice system in itself have affected it because of the fact that they try so hard to help these victims, and a lot of the times it does not go the way that they really wish it should, and they don't feel like they're getting the true justice for their clients, and how this can help with leading to anxiety and depression from not only hearing this person's story and relaying it to the courts, but then at times not receiving the justice they believe is so rightfully earned to their client. They believed that law school teachings have been a huge part of why this has become such an issue. they've shown that in law school, a lot of the times you are told to separate yourself from the client, which is understandable, as a lot of it comes from having to be impartial. But it's not always that easy. You see a lot of times that these people really try to be empathetic with their clients and they try to understand what happened to them. And this can lead to even more depression because you become so attached to your client. They believe the way to change this was to go directly towards the law school aspect, to offer more of the assistance and the help that these clients and the people themselves need. They think that if the law schools taught them how to better cope with these issues as they're going through and before they become actual practicing lawyers, this would truly help break the cycle of vicarious trauma. My third article is from many Israeli healthcare professionals who have been treating trauma and are themselves traumatized. And this is from the Jerusalem Post. This one was about the workers in Israel who had been developing lots of vicarious trauma due to surveys they had conducted. They believe that a lot of this was coping issues from watching their loved ones as well as other people around them really go through some really, really tough times. And they believe that this led to compassion fatigue, traumatic stress, and even vicarious trauma. This was very awful towards these people. They were experiencing and seeing some really awful things done to their loved ones and to other people's loved ones. And they were ignored when they were asked for help. They tried to reach out and tried to share their voice, and they kept getting shut down. This article, the Jerusalem Post, believed that the way to help these people once more is to try to get the help for them. They believe that they need the counseling to try to process their grief and to try to understand better what had been going on for these people. The first of my scholarly articles, however, is the relationship vicarious traumatization with family relations and coping strategies among healthcare professionals, and this is by the Pakistan Armed Forces Medical Journal. This was by Mustafa Halim Khan Akhtar and Mumtaz, sorry for the pronunciation, 2020. This was about therapists in Pakistan who were dealing with wartime issues and were trying to help those who had been going through and seeing these awful things done. This really led to a lot of really bad coping skills, which was adaptive and maladaptive. The adaptive skills were dealing with them as you go, kind of learning as you're going, whereas the maladaptive were kind of just sticking on to those issues. They were never changing. They just had to keep trying the same ways. And this really led to even more issues for those people in general. The therapists in Pakistan were really hearing some awful stories and were having to help people process their grief, but them themselves had no one to turn to. So it developed a lot of vicarious trauma for themselves as they couldn't receive the help they need from hearing and seeing all the awful things that were being done. They believed that this was inevitable and unavoidable. The therapists themselves believed that this was just part of their job, that this wasn't anything they could avoid, that this was just part of the deal that they signed up for when they decided to become therapists, and this is not at all true. Therapists themselves deserve to have that support, that way they don't fall into the same pits that they are trying to help others through. They believed that to fix this, they themselves needed help. They need to understand that they are not alone and that they can go to someone to help them, that this is not unavoidable, that they need to research and do their work. Yes, that is understandable. They need to help people if that's what they feel they need to do, but they also need to help themselves. My second scholarly article is The Contribution of Organizational Factors to Vicarious Trauma in Mental Health Professionals, and this is by the European Journal of Psychotraumatology, and this is by Sutton, Rowe, Hammerton, Billings, 2022. In this, they wanted to acknowledge and validate the vicarious trauma that mental health professionals go through. They really focused in on the fact that they want everyone to know that this is in fact happening, that this is a real problem within our mental health community, and that there needs to be some supervision, supportive relationships, and a balanced job for these professionals, or else it will only begin to get worse. Vicarious trauma versus secondary trauma. Within this realm, they can kind of be used interchangeably, however, they are different. Vicarious trauma itself is one that is felt through another person. This is where a lot of the empathy comes into play, and it can lead to lots of depression because of the fact that they feel like they are experiencing what these people are going through. Whereas secondary trauma are more from a secondhand source. They are seen going through this type of trauma, and they experience it themselves as if they went through it. How to fix this issue? They believed that giving them better coping skills with how to deal with this issue would really truly help them, and that having the supportive relationships around you and having a good balance between your work life and your personal life would really help these individuals. My third scholarly article is Burnout Among Forensics Interviewers, How They Cope and What Agencies Can Do to Help, and this is by Ashley K. Fancher, 2020. Within this, she was interviewing, debriefing, and using court testimonies to her advantage to showcase what had been happening to the forensic interviewers. She believed that in lots of cases, from what they witnessed people go through and what they saw within the different crime scenes and different autopsies, that it really took a toll on them mentally. It is a very hard job to do, to see what one human being can do to another. And that the court testimonies from these people tend to be so emotional because they feel so attached to different cases because of what they have witnessed. This can lead to emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced personal accomplishment because they feel like they aren't doing enough for these people. And once you slip into the I'm not doing enough, it is really easy to slip into depression that is caused by this kind of trauma. It can really make you feel like you're not good enough and that you aren't doing enough for these people and that you can't do anything more. How to fix it? They believe that using coping strategies like therapy or even writing out what is going on so you can get it out of your brain will really help these people, because they do see horrific things on a daily basis and they do need help. The takeaways from this PowerPoint are going to be addressing the issue. The biggest thing that every single one of the articles had spoken on was that we really need to make everyone understand that this is a real issue, that it is not just part of the job, and it shouldn't be, that this is what needs to be changed, that these people who are doing so much to help others should be receiving help themselves. They shouldn't have to go through it alone. I believe that it is in a good direction. The more that this has been discussed and the more the mental health community has helped with letting these individuals express what is going on with them and what they feel needs to change, it has been going towards a good direction. However, it has been overlooked in the past, especially like the former article about the lawyers. It was considered just to be part of the job on a daily basis, and it's not. You shouldn't have to feel like part of your job is losing part of yourself and feeling awful. And this should be something that is way more talked about than it is. And these are my references. Thank you for your time.